Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends. It's the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, coming to you from an undisclosed location. Unfortunately, I cannot be with the group today. I'm going to turn it over to my good buddy, Eddie Guevara, for the introductions and the setup for what's going to turn out to be a great topic of discussion today. So, Eddie, take it away.
2 weeks ago, I had said that I was working on a new website and a new model for the podcast. We had gone from 1 hour every week for the last 3 years that we've been on, and then we started doing 1 hour every 2 weeks for the last 2 or 3 months. We're going to go now back to half hour every week, but our show has changed completely. You will see when you hear the show how our new format is running. Today, I have a special guest star. I know that I've compared you many times to Morton Downey, the talk show host, which was one of my favorite to watch back in the day. And I know you're very similar to him. The only thing is you're smarter than him. So my question, Paul, is what do you think about UFOs in Pennsylvania? Give me a single, simple explanation from Paul Castagnini's words.
I think if we would have had UFOs, we would know about it. It would be across the media, and it would be common knowledge.
Okay,
so if there were UFOs here, there'd be UFOs in New York.
There would be UFOs in New York. Well, give me a little rundown, man. The airwaves are yours.
Aliens and UFOs, somewhat like I would look at Star Trek.
I agree with you. I agree. Let me tell you a quick story. Back in 1982, there was a gentleman. Let's go prior to that. When he was young, he was always intrigued by, flying high, and it's a very funny story. And we did mention in one of the last podcasts where I told the story of it. But they know him as Lawn Chair Larry. Now, what this guy did is when he was around 11 years old, he went to a Army Navy store and he noticed 2 big giant weather balloons, and he was attracted by that. So he always liked the idea of becoming a pilot. He loved the idea of flying. So one day he joined the Army, whatever it was. I think the Army or Air Force. I forgot exactly which one. But his eyesight was poor, so they couldn't give him a pilot's license. So he served in Vietnam as a cook. When he came back, he actually put together this crazy idea, and he went over to I believe a balloon store or some type of novelty store, and he bought 42 weather balloons. He did tell them that he was going to have some type of party or carnival, and that's why he was buying it. And he took a lawn chair that he bought in Sears. He went over and he wanted to tether this lawn chair to his Jeep, and he blew up the 42 balloons, and he tied 12 gallons of water to the lawn chair. He got himself a 6-pack of beer, a CB radio. Well, I'm saying CB radio. It's like 2 CB radios, walkie-talkies, that him and his girlfriend were going to communicate. He tethered the chair to the top of his Jeep, and he climbed on top of his girlfriend's house while his girlfriend and friends were watching in the bottom on the chair, where he took some sandwiches. And apparently, he also took a 6-pack of beer, I think, and a 2-liter Coke, along with an altimeter, so he could see how high he would be flying. Now, his idea was that when they cut the tether off, he was going to float up in the air, about 100 feet in the air. He was going to call the FAA. I don't know what he was going to call the FAA for, but he was thinking he was going to go and he was going to drift over to the Mojave Desert. Unfortunately, the tether broke ahead of time that they planned. And you can see some actual real footage. And the guy, real footage from the actual event, his girlfriend saying, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" He's like, I can't. So he starts going up, but I believe it was about 1,000 feet per minute. And finally, when he reached the height of 16,000 feet in the air in his lawn chair, he started going towards the LAX airport in San Francisco. So a Delta airline
LAX is LA.
LAX, LAX.
Yeah, that's
LA.
Los
I'm
Angeles.
sorry, that's right, yeah. Los Angeles. So when he got up there, a Delta Airlines said, they were looking at this bleep in the radar, and the bleep was showing up slowly, but they said it's some type of UFO. So the Delta airline comes back and said, no, it's a UFI. And they said, clarify. Well, it means it was an unidentified flying idiot. Um, they have the guy up there, and the guy is 16,000 feet in the air, and he had taken a BB gun where he had planned to shoot off the balloon so he could, obviously lose altitude. But when he saw he's up 16,000 feet in the air, in cold, he's up there about 45 minutes, and he finally got the courage. Of course, he did call down from the CB radio, and he called, I forgot who it was, what place, and he said, I want to report an unauthorized balloon launch, right? And which is hilarious, because I'm just thinking the guy's fluttering his mustache all the way up there. He's like, oh, as he's flying up to 16,000 feet. So he finally got the courage to shoot one of the balloons, and then another one and another one. And then he accidentally dropped the BB gun. So I'm not sure exactly how he managed it. He managed to come down. He landed on top of some power lines and caused an outage of 20 minutes in the town where he landed. The police arrested him. They charged him with $4,000 in fines, but later reduced it to $1,500 because they could not. There was nothing. He didn't have a pilot's license, and there was really no rule about flying a lawn chair up there. So now, my thing is, what's your take on that? And overall, one thing that happens a lot in California for some reason is, a couple of months ago, there was a report that there was some guy in a jetpack flying at 3,000 feet, and he was have been seen by one or two airlines. Well, apparently what happened, though, is they said later, 2 weeks later, that they found out it was some type of that looked like which I think I've seen that kite because I wanted to actually buy it. But overall, with all these UFO things coming out, and the media now says that UFOs are real, and there's a whistleblower, but of course, nobody has seen anything. The whistleblower, even though he's known to work for the government, has never really seen any of it. He just heard of it. What's your output overall? I guess you're telling me, like I am, that if it's anything, it's probably governmental, from the government or something. Is that your opinion?
You go into government mind control. I think sometimes they try to stimulate the minds of people and brainwash people into believing certain things, whichever way they're swaying things. I don't know if I believe that they go that far. I'm not so much of a conspiracy theorist.
They do. Remember, they do sometimes want people to believe certain things because their goal is to take them away from what they're actually doing.
Just as a distraction. As a distraction.
As a distraction, yes, correct.
Yes. But I don't think it's they actually want you to believe it. It's just more that they're trying to take away from what they're doing. Exactly what you're saying. Exactly. In a different light. In
a different light. Now, one question, that's, I guess we get the idea with the UFO thing that we're both in the same level. And I kind of agree with that because I really think that everything that we hear in the news and everything.
If there were UFOs, okay, so if a UFO meaning alien spacecraft, not just an unidentified flying object, but alien spacecraft, there would be no avoiding it because you would need motherships and you would need, there would have to be some sort of trace to get here. It would be unavoidable knowledge. Telescopes viewing orbital satellites and ships, and you know what I'm saying. And like NASA has the spacecraft, not the spacecraft.
They have a thing called SETI. And what SETI is they've been sending out signals to space, and people looking for signals. And now they allow people in their homes to join this group. And so far, we're looking out there. We have the Webb telescope. We have a lot of things, and we're not seeing any aliens. In fact, there is, I don't know, you probably haven't heard of this, but there is a black type of rock that's been circling the Earth for many, many years. And they really, and apparently it transmits some type of signals and stuff. They don't know what it is. It's very hard to see. I mean, we're changing right now from UFOs to movies. And this Batman that I saw tonight, it has one of each of the Batmans for each of the movies they recently have done. One with Michael Keaton, like little action figures. And it's a beautiful display thing. But in my opinion, and I wanted to ask you, maybe you can elaborate on this. Batman, every movie they've done of Batman. Now, I'm not a fan of the Black Knight. I didn't like the Black Knight or the Dark Knight, that particular one, but I loved the first part of it and I loved the last of it. My favorite Batman is definitely Christian Bale. Christian Bale is probably the best Batman ever. Love him. He's the one that did Batman Begins. I think is probably the best one. You're correct. And Batman Returns. But what I was going to tell you though is that you can do a Batman movie, and mostly all of them are pretty good, or at least they're watchable. But the problem we have is when we have a movie of Spider-Man, they do the same job. They're all pretty good. But when you have a movie of Superman, and now this is sad to say because Superman is my favorite hero, but they cannot seem to make a good Superman. The first Superman with Christopher Reeves, the one who died in the wheelchair, Christopher Reeves was a phenomenal movie. The very first Superman, 1978. But then Christopher, at the end,
I don't know
of
if
the
I
film,
agree with you on that. I actually,
well, I was gonna.
when I watched, I actually see. I don't agree with most people on superhero movies. The new Man of Steel. Nobody liked that well. I thought it was a very good movie. I think it pieced together Superman very well. Listen, a superhero movie is as good as its villain. That's a fact, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you agree, but
Here's what I'm going to
it's a
tell you.
subjective fact.
Yeah, no. Well, what I'm saying, what I think is that the first Superman, okay, what did phenomenal. It did because he was more like a human form. He punched somebody, they fall down. But then when he made the Earth go back in time, I thought that was a little far fetched. What you said about the Man of Steel. What I don't like about the Man of Steel is because when he punches a guy, he goes through cars. So the cars break in pieces, but the human he just punched doesn't. So I kind of think that that's what throws me off on the Supermans. My favorite Superman, to be honest with you, is Superman Returns, where he I think he gets pregnant. At the end, there's a little baby with Lois Lane. I think that's probably one of the best ones. And I mean, that is my favorite, though. But I agree with you with Batman Begins as being the best one of the entire series, I think.
Nobody ever says that because most people go with the Heath Ledger thing. And, I think Heath Ledger played a great role, but not for nothing. He doesn't
I
impress
hated
me
it,
that
bro.
much.
Let me tell you that. I hated that Batman. I went to the opening night of that Batman. It was so crap, but I just hated that movie. It was not about Batman. It was all about the Two-Face and the Joker. I just thought it was stupid. I hate it. The last Batman they did with this guy from the vampire guy, that was a waste of time, a lone piece of garbage that should just be junked. The guy is a horrible Batman. This is the last one that they did. I mean, it was not a good film, but Batman Begins with Val Kilmer. I mean, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer did a good Batman too. I can't say I didn't like him, but Christian Bale is a phenomenal actor. And Christian Bale did a movie called The Prestige, and he also did a movie called which was
I'm just not a fan of the voice. The Batman voice gets irritating.
Oh, come on, dude. That voice is phenomenal. I mean, come on.
I don't know. Listen, I like it because Batman will always be my favorite superhero out of all of them. It's like, because he has that dark side. He has that, he's not just a goody good boy. There's depth to his character that I don't think there is in many of the superheroes.
The new Batman is great, phenomenal. I do like him a lot. But I do love Superman a little better. But then again, here's the way it works. If you go to the original 1960s TV episode, that Superman was obviously George Reeves. Now, George Reeves, which of course none of them really have that name. That's just their screen names. I forgot his real name, what it was, but George Reeves was a perfect Clark Kent. So the way it came out is that Christopher Reeve came out as the number one Superman of all, and George Reeves came out as the best Clark Kent. I still like the George Reeves Superman. That's the one I grew up in and watching, in the 70s.
I don't remember that, to tell you the truth.
You got to, I mean.
I remember the old Batman shows, but I definitely don't remember the Superman.
How old are you now?
46.
Okay, that's why. Superman, I'm 59. So Superman was played daily on television. So you would remember. But if you look at the original George Reeves Superman, it was made more for an adult audience. Why the Batman was like, hey, Robin, we have to look at the green light before we cross the street. You know, it had a lot of segments there that were made for little kids.
Oh,
but
it was corny. Yeah.
It was
It
corny,
was definitely
but
a
it's
lot of
still
cheese in that.
yeah, but I still like the Batman. I mean, Christian Bale killed it with Batman, though. He made it. It's an awesome Batman. I love. I don't know. Just the voice itself is great. But then again, a lot of people don't like. But I like uh, Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider with this guy Nicolas Cage. The first one, he killed it, man.
I
That's
never
one of my
watched it.
favorite. You never
But if
watched
you
Ghost Rider?
no,
Oh.
if you're gonna talk Batman, I Gotham, the show. Did you watch that to completion?
I didn't want to get into it because I was watching The Blacklist, which I kind of regret that I haven't even watched the darn show. I mean, The Blacklist.
The
I
Blacklist
put a
is
lot of
too repetitive. Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I fell in love with that show. I bought each of the three of each of the seasons, and then when the way they just killed it off at the end now, the last 2 or 3 months, I took NBC off every single episode thing I have. I don't want to watch NBC. I hate them for what they did to that show. They destroyed probably one of the best shows for me in history, and it was just the ending sucked so bad that I'm going to sell the entire thing I have because I don't even care for it anymore. Now,
Blacklist. I think I loved it for Root. Right? Root. Oh no, that's not Blacklist. I'm mixing it up.
Yeah, you're mixing it up, man.
I'm mixing it up. I remember Blacklist though.
You're the guy that called me one time that we did the 10 best films ever, and you were like yapping away, and you had a million things to say, and now you're forgetting everything. What's going on?
No, you said no. That was shows. And I was very shocked because I heard you speaking about. I was very shocked that you said that because there's another way we're on the same page. You said that I think if I'm correct, you said that you like the Munsters better than the Addams Family.
Well, I do. I mean, the Addams Family was great, but you know, if you look at some of the original Addams Family monsters, some of the Addams Family are kind of like just lame. They don't make you laugh that much, you know.
The Munsters owned me. I agree with you. And you know what? And most people will not say that. You know,
well,
and the greatest shows of all time, that's not on my list. All in the Family is on my list. But Everybody Loves Raymond is on my list. You know, I'm not. If we're going to go with the weird and the unusual, the Twilight Zone's on my list. You know, the Munsters. Yes, definitely the Munsters. I thought it was a hysterical hit sitcom. But I don't know. I don't remember the exact that you put up. I don't remember if it was just unusual shows or sitcoms. I don't remember that. But I do remember that you said that you like the Munsters, and I was a very big fan of the Munsters.
Thank you for being on. You're the greatest, man. And I mean, I know right now we've been talking for only a couple of minutes, and I know I got you off base where you probably haven't been. But I know that you're one of those persons that when you start rambling, you know, and you're very knowledgeable, unlike anybody I've seen. So I'm proud to have you as a friend, buddy. So other than that,
you. Same here. Same here.
You take care, brother, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It definitely has been. Have a great night.
Chuck, go ahead with the new podcast format we have. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, Eddie, thanks. Robert the Doll. This story has terrified people for decades. People agree Robert the Doll is horrifying. This is a story of Key West's best-kept secret and most cryptic story. Robert currently resides in the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. He is covered with a clear display case surrounded by electronic sensors should anyone dare to try and take Robert. Currently, he is 119 years old. Now, my wife and I, Sherry, had the chance to actually see Robert the Doll last year in Key West in this museum. And I will be posting a picture or two on the forum of House of the Unusual and a brief video as well. And I tell you what, this creeped me out. If you have a chance to search this, or if you'd like to Google it, check it out. It's really a fascinating story. I have no idea if there's any truth to this or not, but here's the legend, okay? And by the way, the thing that probably terrified me even worse was the airport in Key West. It was very, very small. I mean, when we flew in from, I think we went from Pittsburgh to North Carolina, then we went down to Florida, down to Key West. The airport is like, I mean, like microscopic. But that's another story. All right. Robert the Doll came into the museum in 1994. Prior to this, he was the property of Robert Eugene Otto. Robert became an eccentric artist, and his family was well known and prominent in the Key West area. The doll owner had the same name, but the boy answered to the name of Gene. So we'll call him Gene from now on through this story. Gene's paintings later on in life became known worldwide. He was an exceptional artist. And his house is currently a bed and breakfast in Key West, and it's absolutely gorgeous. This is booked well in advance. Now, my wife and I tried to get this place actually, but they were booked up for like the next 2 years. So we did get a beautiful place, probably just 2 blocks down the road. So it was very, very close, but it's called the Artist's House. Robert the Doll was given to Gene as a child it was a birthday gift from Otto's grandfather, who purchased the doll on a trip to Germany. The doll supposedly is a Steiff doll. And if anybody knows about Steiff, they make the teddy bears. And they are patterned after Teddy Roosevelt. That's where they came about. Now, Robert is much, much bigger than an average Steiff teddy bear. I was surprised how big he is. I'm guessing, but I would say he's about maybe 36 inches, maybe 3 feet tall. He's actually very, very large. And the thing that is creepy about Robert, if you look at him closely, even on the pictures and the picture that I'll post on the forum, is his face. I'm not sure if it's made of cork or some type of material, but throughout the age, the natural attrition has caused him to have pock marks, and it's just creepy. I mean, very, very creepy looking. And he's holding a little animal. Most people think it's a dog, but it's a lion. He's holding an actual little lion, and he's really something to see. And he is dressed in a child's sailor suit. Now, the thing about this is this sailor suit was not supplied by the manufacturer. So speculation has it that this was Gene's childhood suit that he put on him at some point. So that's the story with the actual suit itself. Now, here's the thing. As a child, Gene would take the doll everywhere, and he often referred to it in the first person as if he was alive. Robert the doll was very, very creepy, like I said, and it creeped people out from the very beginning. Not long after the legend began, young Gene would blame mishaps on the doll. When Gene's room would be ransacked, when questioned by his parents, Gene would say Robert did it. And neighbors would swear they saw the doll peeking out of the window when nobody was home. Family members said they heard tiny footsteps running up and down the steps throughout the hallways, and giggling. Strange giggling was heard as well. And they would swear that Robert's facial expressions would change when Gene was scolded. So there were some really crazy things going on in this particular house. And needless to say, the school children avoided the house on walks to and from school. Now, Eugene Otto died in 1974, and he is buried in the Key West Cemetery. Now, my wife Sherry and I also visited the cemetery when we were down there. It's a cool cemetery. It's above ground because of the high water table. So, all of the mausoleums are actually flat, but they're above ground. Very, very cool. It's a really neat cemetery. And we did take a few pictures of Robert Eugene Otto's tombstone as well. But he was buried there. And like I said, everything is above ground. After he passed away, I'm not sure exactly how long after, a woman named Myrtle Reuter purchased the artist house. And Reuter also claimed Robert the doll ran about throughout the hallways when she was downstairs. So he was into a lot of mischief as well. Finally, after 20 years of all this mischief, she donated him to the museum, which was previously mentioned. Now, at the museum, you can take pictures with Robert, but you're supposed to ask first. Supposedly, there was much tragedy to people who did not ask. I mean, there was car accidents. There was people that actually tripped and fell at some point, during the day after they did not ask. Now, in the video, you will notice I did not ask. I just said, "Robert, we mean you no harm." That's the best I could do. I was trying to act cool because my wife was there. I mean, who wouldn't want to act cool in front of their wife? But to be perfectly honest with you, I was a little bit creeped out. The music they play is what really cinches it. I mean, it's like a music box type of uh, almost like a child's music box. Very, very creepy. Would I go back to see Robert again? Yes, I would. If I was offered one in a million chance to walk around in there at night by myself, no, I definitely would not do it. Uh, but the museum sells replicas of Robert, which is pretty cool. I actually bought one of these, and it's a small little Robert, maybe about 10 inches tall, and he's holding a little stuffed lion. What I did was made a magic trick out of it, and if I can find the video, I will post that on the forum as well. So it's pretty cool, and they have a lot of other memorabilia as well. They have ashtrays. They have several books written on him. This has become the largest attraction of the museum, and I'd highly recommend seeing this. But he is really something else, and people actually send him letters. He gets between 1 and 3 letters a day, from my understanding. And if it's from a child, the people who work there try and respond. So that's a nice thing to do. The one thing I did want to mention, there is a ghost tour in Key West, which is downtown Key West. It takes place on a trolley, and it is really cool. I mean, just as the sun is setting, it's kind of creepy. The trolley takes you all the way through Key West, and one of the stops is at the museum. They slow down and tell you about Robert the doll. There's a lot of history in Key West. One of the other things, which maybe I'll talk about sometime, is Karl von Kossel, also known as Karl Tanzler. He was a pseudo doctor, not really a doctor he claimed to be, but he worked on people who had tuberculosis. And there was a woman who passed away from tuberculosis that he fell in love with back in the 1930s, I believe. And he stole her body, and he had it hidden for about 7 years. So that's on the ghost tour as well. As a matter of fact, the thing that's really cool is really right next to Robert the doll, they have the woman's tombstone that Karl Tanzler fell in love with. Her last name was Munoz, I believe. But it's really neat. They have a lot of neat things in there. I highly recommend going on the ghost tour. It takes about 45 minutes or so. But the legend continues. I mean, is this real? Is this made up? I have no idea. But there is a creep factor to this whole story. Creep factor wise, I would say it's a 9. It's pretty high up there. You really have to see Robert in person to appreciate this. They picked the right music. He's a very creepy looking doll. He's in a very creepy looking museum. It is really neat. So until next time, have a spooky night.